Talking about outsourcing tax and jobs, that obviously is where a consulting firm readily comes in handy because they stand in the gap most times as professionals in either undertaking certain tax or providing advisory, guidance, and actionable solution to address certain needs. Today on SME Hub, we'll delve into the business of consultancy and how various job opportunity it creates. I'm being joined by Jeffrey Adebowale Johnson. Is the MD CEO Purple Prime Limited. Now, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So briefly, how or what made you delve into the business of consultancy?
Okay, wow, that's an interesting one. I'll say this, that I never wanted to go into consulting, not even HR consulting, maybe medical consulting, because while I was young, I wanted to be a medical surgeon. That was my focus, that was my interest. But I would say that about 2 years after I left secondary school, I was somewhere within the same environment where I grew up. And I was in a church, a redeemed church called Life Spring, no longer in Bagada now. And there was a certain man, Pastor Shola Adewale, he pastors one of the redeemed churches as well currently. And, you know, he saw me in church and how I was very engaged with the work of the church and the work of ministry. And then he invited me to come and do some work for him in Phillips Consulting. That was in December 1999. And that was how my journey started, you know, into consulting. I did the very first work, which was more or less giving gifts to their clients. You know, this was December time, was the Christmas time, and, you know, I helped in distributing gifts. And then the very next year, after all of the Christmas and festive season had ended, he then invited me again to come and score script for the tool that was being used for recruitment, you know. So I started marking script for them, and that's how my journey started in consulting.
Okay, you've tried to explain who a consultant is, but I'm still not getting it. So who is a consultant?
Okay, basically, a consultant is, we use another word that I love to use, is an advisor. Though sometimes some people will say a consultant is a person who picks your wristwatch and tell you what time it is. But most importantly, a consultant is the kind of person that does a lot of research and provides solutions to your everyday need, whether in your business or in your personal life, because you have some other people who do some personal coaching, life coaching and all of that. But if you just focus on businesses alone, a consultant is a person who looks at your business from a different angle, is not in the everyday operation of your business, but help you provide solutions. So there are different angles to consulting. There are different aspects of consulting. So it depends on it, but generally it's about providing solutions to your business.
Okay, now, if one wants to delve into, you know, this aspect of the business, which is consultancy, do they go through any form of training or registration, whatever?
Okay, to be a consultant, generally, you don't have to undergo some sort of specific training, but there are some things that you need to do. Like I said, again, in consulting, there are different areas. If you want to be a human resource consultant, you just need your basic education, number one. And then number two, that you then need to be certified, you know, as an HR personnel manager and all of that. Then you need to go to CIPM or do your CIPD or do your strategic HR management courses and stuff like that. So there are different trainings that you can do to kind of like ingrain you into the technical part of HR consulting. But generally, as a consultant, you don't necessarily need to say, oh, to be a consultant and be named a consultant, I need to go to a consulting school. No. An accountant who is chartered is a consultant because generally you could be an in-house accountant or you could consult for people and help them balance their books. You could be a tax consultant. You could do that as a consultant, but you could also do that as an in-house person in an organization. Similarly, a recruiter, a trainer. So you could do it as a consultant and you could also do it as an in-house. So it's not like you must go through a certain school or get some certain qualification that is different. You just need to know that you need to be qualified for whatever aspect that you want to do, you want to delve into, and then offering it to multiple people then makes you a consultant. You know, when you provide services, like you say, a medical consultant, for example, it's a doctor. primarily has to be a good doctor before you can then advise, before you can then practice in multiple, hospitals. So yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that there are different areas of consultancy. So what is your expertise and why did you choose
That area.
Okay. Yeah.
So apart from my business, I as a person, like I said, about 22 years ago, got into HR consulting. And I built a lot of capacity in that regard. But where my focus was mainly, even while I was doing that, was more of organizational restructuring, the talent management. Those were the areas that I had focus on. I started out, like I said again, with recruitment. But while I was in Philips, where I was in human capital, department, where we had, recruitment and HR restructuring in the unit. Though you also have training on one side. But as I grew in my career, I picked interest in training as well. I was developing models for training. When I joined one of my former bosses then, I was doing a lot of training as much as we're doing HR restructuring. In fact, I will say that one of the biggest experience I've had in my HR journey was the HR due diligence for Unity Bank. Unity Bank, as you see it, is actually a merger of 7 banks, acquisition of 2, making a total of 9 banks. Now, imagine having 9 different cultures, 9 different businesses trying to come together to become one. So you can imagine the diversity of the people. So I learned a lot around, talking about, culture and cultural diversity and how to bring, different people together. And, while I was growing up in my career as well, I learned a lot about personality, how to look at different personalities, and bringing them together to work together as a team. So then again, you start talking about team structures and how to develop teams. But at some point in my career, I decided to specialize in an area that I call land, in an area where I say, hey, land is what we all have. And the whole world have it in abundance, though we have more water than we have land. Anyway, we talk about proportion. But there's a lot that happens on land, and I wanted to know more about it. So I went into real estate advisory. Then I started doing research in that industry. And so I began to learn about, shelter and the houses that you put on land. Then I started to also learn about agriculture, how to generate food out of the land. Then what are the other things that are underneath the ground? Then we start talking about mining, oil and gas and all of that. So what comes out of the land, I decided to also delve into that over the last 2 decades.
So how have you been able to unearth all of this? Trying to take all of it in. Yeah. How? And it feels like, consultancy, advisory, they go hand in hand.
It's more or less the same.
Yes. So how have you been able to unearth all what you mentioned?
Okay, so like I said again, it's been over 2 decades. My interest also, because I also study statistics, interestingly from Olabisi Onabanjo University.
That's cool.
Yes.
Nice.
So you can't go through that school and not be... And so I had embedded in myself the value to want to do better, on a daily basis. So this is why I've, kind of put my hands in multiple places.
So tell me, how profitable is this business?
So for me, profit has never been a focus, but rather value. And so if I would say that if any of my guys who watches this, or probably maybe will see it online, and I would ask them to leave a comment for those who may have had some sort of part with me, they would be able to say, rather than I'm showing my bank account. So that's my own foundation. More of the people that I've impacted than the records of what I keep in the bank. But if you want to ask, is advisory profitable? Yes, it can be profitable if your brand is good. Some brands in Nigeria charge in dollars, the big names, some try to at least keep it safe by not overcharging the client. But again, if I have a client that I'm advising, and I'm not just saying proposal to proposal, that's why it's the same. Consulting and advisory is the same, but I like to adopt the advisory part by saying that I don't just come with proposal to proposal. So if you sign me up and we decide to engage, I will be working with your brand to ensure that you grow every day. So I am ingrained in your business and ensuring that as you grow, I would also grow. So yes, I may have a retainer agreement where you pay me something, but I also have to know that whatever I'm getting from you, I'm able to increase your turnover. I'm able to also not just only increase your turnover, but help you maximize profit.
In a few minutes, what advice do you have for someone who would want to, like, venture into the business?
Become a professional by giving yourself to whatever it is that you want to do. And like I said again, consulting is not just in HR. Wherever you sit, whatever you do, you can actually consult for people. You can actually advise people on how to get it done. If for example, I can tell you that you don't have to be a politician to advise politicians. So you must know, and for you to be able to advise someone, you must carry knowledge. So my final word, in that thought is, I define wisdom as a correct application of understood knowledge. Notice there's wisdom, knowledge, and understanding in my definition. Wisdom is the correct application of understood knowledge, which means you cannot be wise until you gather knowledge. And when you have robust knowledge and you apply it correctly, then people will say you are wise. Solomon displayed that, and that's why we say he's the wisest man, after Jesus. But then, so you need to be like that. You need to be someone with a deep understanding of a lot of things. I'm not a lawyer, but I know about the legal proceedings in Lagos, for example. I'm not an accountant, but I do financial models. I'm not a doctor, but you can't tell me anything about my health, and I don't have an understanding, of what is going on. So I may not be the best in some things, but in what I do, I'm the best in it. But I have knowledge of, quite a lot of things. And so it's easier for me to get into your space. And, while we were talking off camera before we started, I was telling you about my involvement in entertainment. So I've played, a lot and I have my hands quite dirty in a lot of things. I mean, I'm very hands-on, so that if you want to get to be a good advisor, a good consultant, you must know and you must open your heart to learning a lot, and having capacity for information.
Thank you so much. This episode was really insightful. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.